first, let me get that introduction. We on a long road to self-destruction.
Hey, what's up, people? I just want to do a quick let's talk about Paragon Overprime. This is like the successor to Paragon if you happen to play it back in the day, which I think was like, I don't know, 2016 or something like that. Whenever back in the PS4 era. So, Netmarble and a company called Soul Eve actually got their hands on the licenses to this and ended up making their own version of it called Paragon Overprime. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Specifically, we're going to talk about an aspect about it that I think is worth going over, which is the role of the jungler. So we'll go across over that and we'll talk about that in a second. So just a little background for this game. This is a third-person MOBA. So if you're familiar with MOBAs, essentially they're team-based games. You know that you're put into a specific role. You have to play that role throughout the game. You're trying to level up and acquire enough gold in order to get items that will power you up. And then in the end, you'll capture all the bases that the other team has and then get the victory by essentially capturing the last base. So that's kind of like a fast overview of what a MOBA would be and how this game works. So why am I making this video in the first place? Well, I want to make this video because even though the beta in my area has ended for right now, whenever it does turn back on, I think there's an aspect to the game that I think a lot of people could benefit from or just basically weren't fully playing correctly that I noticed as we were playing through the beta. And that was the role of the jungle. So I just want to talk to that a little bit and then hopefully shine a little light on what the purpose is of anybody who actually is inside the jungle. And you know what, to be honest, by the time I'm finished with this, I think that everybody out there will pretty much start to appreciate that role a little bit more. Like when I was playing in the beta, I definitely got the sense that nobody really wanted to play that role just because it is, and in all intents and purposes, you're not going to get MVPs usually running off that role. And you're usually not recognized during that time up until about the end of I'll take it back, up until about mid to late game. Then people started kind of seeing the effect of like, oh, okay, like you're really getting it in. But you can actually start that process sooner. And I promise you, man, like if you do this correctly, your teammates will love you. So, all right. So I'm just going to jump straight to it and start talking about the jungle. So the purpose of the role is your job is to just fight NPCs. And specifically, you want to get strong enough to be able to take on the primes inside this game. For that term, essentially, they're like mega power-ups for you and your team. That is your whole goal, is to fight enough NPCs, level up enough, and be able to handle those, hopefully, on your own. And so that way your team gets mad benefits and, can go forth and get easy dubs. So let me go ahead and break it down a little bit and tell you about how it works. So when you first jump into the jungle role, your job is, like I said, to jump into the jungle, which is you pop in and there's generally a red buff and a blue buff that starts off first. And they're surrounded by some other little NPCs that you can fight for gold as well. Depending on what kind of character you're using, if you run over to the red buff, that'll give you an increase in physical power. It'll slow down enemies' attacks, and you'll also start dealing fire damage. So it's only temporary, but it's enough for you to be able to clean up that whole area that you're in. So you can clean out the red buff and then clean out all the white enemies that are over there as well. If you're low on health, jump back to base. You should have enough gold to at least, in my opinion, and this is a whole different debate, but in my opinion, pick up lifesteal of some kind, because the longer you can sit out there in the wilderness by yourself and just be able to keep getting a constant HP pull, just the better advantage you have. The longer in the battlefield, the better. So you want to hit that red buff, and if you're more of a magic user, you want to hit the blue buff first, because that's going to give you an increase to magic power, decrease all your cooldowns, like the amount of time it takes for you to actually be able to cast another spell, and it'll give you a short-term shield and restore some of your mana. So hit that, clean out that whole section, and do everything in your power to try to get to, I've seen people go crazy off of level 5, but honestly, in most cases, you want to get to level 6. Once you get to level 6, that's when you get your alt. And your first alt, depending on what character you are, that uh, let me scrap that. The alt that you get, essentially, you're gonna need that. And I'll explain a little later once I talk about specific characters. But once you get to around level 5 or 6 and you finally get your ult at 6, you're pretty much strong enough to take on the primes by yourself, depending on who you are, or at least with a teammate you can take on the prime. Now, the primes are important because these give you buffs to not just you, but to your whole entire squad. And it also gives buffs to all like the little bots that are out there with you as well. Some of these buffs are actually permanent, so once you get them once, it stacks for the rest of the game. Other ones are temporary, which are it lasts about 3 minutes in that current version of the beta. It lasts about 3 minutes, but that's more than long enough for you to do some hella damage, and I'll explain why. So if you're able to pick up the yellow prime, um, this will give you, and mind you, all these buffs will actually stick around for the entire match, and it's for the whole entire team. So you'll get a small increase to damage, movement speed, attack speed, decrease in cooldown times, increase in MP and HP regen, and yeah, no, that's pretty much it. So you'll get all those for your entire team, and they last throughout the entire match. Now, what you're going to get is going to be kind of randomized because depending on what version of that yellow stag or prime, really, the yellow prime that you're fighting, it gives off a different buff. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to go and take that thing down because your whole team is going to get stronger for the rest of the match. So, enough said there. The purple prime, you want to take him down because all the same. He gives you an increase to damage, attack speed, HP regen, decrease in cooldowns, and all that. This only lasts for 3 minutes, but it's considerably higher. Like if the other one's giving you like a 5 to 10% increase, this gives you like a 45. Well, I'll say somewhere between like a 20 to 45% increase in some areas. So it's short term, but you get that power up and you can push through a prime. I'm sorry, push through a tower slash inhibitor really quickly. It's incredible. So these are the points where you really want to get strong enough to be able to attack these. And if you're good at being in the jungle, you can actually take this down by yourself, which is so helpful because your teammates never have to leave their lanes. They can keep on just maintaining, and once you're able to just run around and knock these out by yourself, your team is constantly buffed at all times, and it makes the match a cakewalk. I mean, most matches you'll probably end around level 11 to level 15. You probably wouldn't even get to late game at that point. And if you do, your team is so OP that you'll walk through the other team, man. It's follow along and just make sure to do that. Also, I forgot to mention that once you kill the purple prime, it also summons, well, that prime itself into one of the lanes, and he'll run down and essentially do massive damage to one of the towers or one of the inhibitors that are there. And if, well, actually, no, if he does that, and he also gives you a temporary increase to the damage that you do to towers and inhibitors. So that's at that point your team's able to basically walk through those things. Um, Let me jump back. So to wrap this up, why I think that this is important is because a lot of people that play the game, or at least played in this beta, they were treating the jungle unit as either basically they treated the jungle unit as a support unit. And in this game, a support unit's job is to run a lane with another hero, essentially. They may jump off every so often and jump into a jungle and maybe do some stuff there, but that's not their bread and butter. So if you play it as a support, you're not actually getting the greatest benefit while you're just trying to chase down a kill. You know what I mean? So you'll jump into a lane. I've seen this tons of times in the beta. People will jump into to a lane to try to get a kill, but they're spending like, I don't know, 2 minutes trying to get that kill when they could be inside the jungle cleaning up and getting ready to get their team a power up. And while you're trying to chase a kill, one, you're leveling up slower. Two, you're acquiring gold slower. Three, now the gold and XP is being split between you and your teammate. So you guys are farming off the same land, and that's not what you want to do in this game. It's a complete waste of time. So that I think that whenever this beta is done and it moves to the next phase and we're able to get back in there, I think if people learn how to start working with the jungle correctly, we're going to see a huge shift in how this game is played. Um, and just one more thing before I go, some recommendations as far as people who should be in the jungle. I'm definitely going to recommend Wukong, Wukong and Chimera. Chimera has a built-in life steal, so he can essentially survive in the jungle for longer. Wukong has, once he gets his ult, he essentially gets a version of himself where he has multiple versions of himself attacking. Think like if you ever thought back in the day and you were like a Naruto fan, think whenever he would make copies of himself and then attack you all at once. So your DPS is insane, and against those primes, his DPS is wild, man. Like I know he's listed as an easy character, but he's honestly one of the easiest versions. He's honestly one of the easiest ways to learn the concept of the jungle because he makes it a cakewalk. I'm sure there's some other heroes out there too that are that dope, but those are the ones I'm going to go with just in short conversation. So, um, all right. Well, that's pretty much all I have. I really do hope that they bring this beta back, or at the very least release this game soon. And when they do, keep some of the concepts that the way the jungle works is then keep that whenever they release it in the future. So, um, yeah, man, that's all I got. I appreciate everybody for listening. And whenever this game comes back, I'm telling you, jump into that role and take full advantage. Thank you all for listening. Goodbye.